Alright, what's up guys? We're going to do another ESO build video. This time around we're playing as a ranged style magicka templar, and this is a 1-bar PvP build. So we're going to be chucking spears at our enemies from a distance and blasting all the non-believers with our Jesus beam when they're low on health. Kind of just to assist our group members in finishing off those pesky tower humpers and rock humpers. So first and foremost, we're playing as a templar. You can go for a Khajiit, a dark or a high elf, or one of the sustain races like a Breton or Argonian. I had to hit him with the cat girl for that critical bonus and slightly buffed stats all around, so meow. I've placed my skill points across magicka and health, so we have a slightly larger health pool to help us out with survivability. If you don't mind being really squishy, you can go ahead and put more into magicka if you'd prefer. That's kind of up to you. For our Mundus Stone, we're going with the Thief to increase our weapon and spell critical. You could also use Atronach if you want more magicka recovery. That would be a very good call. For food, I'm using Witch Mother's Potent Brew. The Clockwork Citrus Fillet would be ideal here, but I'm poor and I can't afford it, so we'll just make do with what we have. If you're looking good on sustain, you could also use something like Bewitched Sugar Skulls here as well. So just kind of suit it to your playstyle and play around with different foods and just kind of see what you need. Moving over to our armor sets, we're using 5 medium pieces of Order's Wrath. I have those on the helm, the shoulders, the hands, the pants, as well as the boots. These are all going to be divines with magicka enchantments to beef up our resource pool and our critical damage again. Our other set is going to be the Back Alley Gourmand. I'm wearing a light belt in divines with a magicka enchantment, an infused flame staff with a weapon damage enchantment, and then just a necklace and a ring, both of those being infused with spell damage enchantments. And then of course our mythic, the Oakensoul ring, has a prismatic recovery glyph along with being in the swift style. This could also just be infused with spell damage along with the other rings, but I like the tiny boost of sustain along with a bit of movement speed. Our last armor piece, since I'm not using a monster helm, is a good old heavy curious of the trainee. This gives us a little bit more health, and we want it to be reinforced to maximize the effectiveness of our biggest armor piece. Of course, you want everything to be upgraded as much as humanly possible, so stack up those gold materials and upgrade as you can. One swap out you could do here would be to use a magicka recovery monster helm like Chokethorn or something like that, and then just use Order's Wrath for your chest armor, so you have all 5 pieces of that. I personally like the little bump of health that we get from the trainee piece, so just kind of do what you want there. And on to skills, we have the Jesus Beam, Radiant Glory. This will be used to finish off enemies while getting a little bit of a heal with every shot. We're also running with Living Dark as a defensive / healing ability. Our main spammable when we're not beaming people to death will be the Aurora Javelin. As long as we chuck these from the max distance, we'll get a nice 40% damage boost on that. And the flex spot is going to be Channeled Focus. I like this for the bit of healing and magicka recovery it provides. You could also put something like Revealing Flare to get a passive defensive buff here, or Backlash to mark enemies that you're going after, or even something like Channeled Acceleration for mobility. Maybe even Shards for a little bit of extra AoE damage when you're trying to take down a ball group or something like that. It's up to you in the end, but like I said, I definitely like the bit of healing and magicka recovery from Channeled Focus. And then our last main skill is going to be Hasty Prayer. This is our main heal that we can also use to buff up our teammates. Much better than Resolving Vigor, and since we're a Templar, we do best to take advantage of the different skill lines we have access to. And our ultimate is going to be Shooting Star. If you can't be bothered to grind up Mage's Guild to get this, which is totally understandable, you could also go with Nova from the Dawn's Wrath skill line, Rite of Passage, which is the Restoring Light ultimate if you'd rather lean a bit more into the healer role, or you could even theoretically use the Destruction Staff ultimate or one of the defensive ultimates from the heavy or medium armor section. In my mind, Shooting Star is pretty much the best DPS ultimate, and it can really come in clutch when you're in a tough spot. For passives, you can get what you need from all 3 of the armor skill lines, the Alliance War skill lines, guilds, and all the passives from the Templar skill lines, as well as the Destruction Staff skill line. other than the Destruction Expert skill, since we aren't using any skills from that actual skill line. Onto champion points. Under Warfare, we're doing Fighting Finesse, Backstabber, Deadly Aim, and Master at Arms. And for fitness, we're running Celerity, Fortified, Pain's Refuge, and Slippery. For craft, get what you can afford. Keep an eye always on having, Steed's Blessing, Gifted Rider, and War Mount. You could also stick Rationer or Liquid Efficiency in the last spot. I have Treasure Hunter here just as a placeholder at the moment. For our rotation, at least with skills that I have set up on my bar, we're basically just going to make sure that we always have a glyph on the ground that we're standing on to benefit from those heals and magicka recovery and the resistances that we gain. So you can kind of think of it as your little happy place or your safe space or whatever. And from this position, we want to keep our bubble up when we're engaged in combat and start kind of just chucking spears. One of our champion abilities gives us a 10% critical damage buff if we're attacking enemies from behind, so try to keep that in mind as you're moving around in the world. Obviously, you won't always be behind your enemies. Most fights would have you face to face, and since we can't really go invisible and sneak behind people, oftentimes we'll end up fighting from a distance facing the enemy. When they begin to run away from our group, though, we can always yeet a spear at them to knock them down and finish them off with Radiant Glory. This sort of a combo tends to work really well when you find yourself casually walking in to help your team deal with like a tower humper. They'll have like 25% of their health left, continuously dodge roll and heal themselves for 15 to 20 minutes at a time, and everyone is just chasing them around in circles. I found on many occasions that I can kind of cut the person off and just lob a spear at their backside and spam a few beams and send them back to whatever hellhole they came from. Probably EP or AD. The same idea can apply to ball groups as well. Single out one target, knock them down with a spear, hit them a couple more times while they're stunned with spears, and then finish them off with the beam. But anyways, there isn't really a super specific rotation with this build per se, but as I said before, just kind of try to be standing on your glyph as much as you can remember to be, at least. Keep your shield up when you're in a fight, heal yourself and your team with hasty prayer when you need to, and just unload with spears and beams and the occasional shooting star. You'll probably find that you tend to burn through magicka pretty quickly when you start throwing spears. You can only throw so many if you're just mashing that button over and over again. So be sure to weave in some heavy attacks and slam those potions as well. I usually tend to just use tripods since I have about 50 billion of them in my bank, but a magicka potion would work here too. Yeah, that's basically the build. I ran around for a while to get some footage for the video, so hopefully there's at least a few clips in here that I can hobble together and give you an idea of how this plays out in action. But thanks for watching, and let me know how you like the build and what changes you'd make to it.